This week's US CQM Forecast Alert is recession risks have become apparent in 2024 Q1. The biggest impact on this week's CQM and PCA forecast was the January retail sales fell by 0.8%, much below the ARIMA forecast of minus 0.05%. On the expenditure side, personal consumption expenditures have been revised downward significantly. And on the income side, non-farm proprietors' income and corporate profit have been revised downward a lot. As a result, economic growth rates have been revised downward significantly on both the expenditure and income sides. Overall CPI rose 0.3% in January, higher than the ARIMA forecast of 0.2%. In terms of individual CPIs, automobiles and energy were each below the ARIMA forecast, while food, furniture, services were above their ARIMA forecast. This table shows changes in the forecast of PCE between this week and the last week, with updated January retail sales and CPI. The overall nominal PCE was revised downward from 3.93% to 2.09%, while the PCE price deflator was adjusted upward from 2.01% to 2.28%. As a result, real PCE is now expected to show a negative growth rate of minus 0.18%. On the income side, non-farm proprietors' income and corporate profit have been revised downward significantly. Nominal GDP on the income side has been adjusted downward from 2.6% to 1.4%. All inflation indicators are forming an upward trend. The growth rate of GDP price deflator increased by 0.46% to 2.58%. Lowering the real GDP growth rate on the income side. CQM has revised the economic growth rate significantly downward on both the expenditure and the income side. On the expenditure side, this is due to a decline in personal consumption expenditure, and on the income side, this is due to a decline in non-farm proprietors' income and corporate profit, as well as rising inflation. It is safe to say that the risk of recession is now clear. The PCA forecast also revised the economic growth rate downward by about 1%, although not as much as the CQM forecast. The reason why the economic growth rate is 1.66%, which is higher than the CQM forecast, is mainly due to the strong performance of stock prices in the financial sector. Conclusion from this week's US CQM Forecast Alert. The first, recession risks have become apparent in 2024 Q1, mainly due to January retail sales and CPI. The second, inflation steadily rises. The third, the keys to the future economic outlook are personal consumption expenditure, corporate profit, and stock prices. This slide contains additional information about this week's detailed CQM forecast and shows how to access the past US CQM Forecast Alert.